Hello, and welcome to Animation Triad. As always, I'm Lish, and Stu, and Teddy D, and we are discussing the wonderful series Death Note. So why was I sitting like that? Well, because I have to sit like that, or my skills of deduction go down by 20%. But given that it's so dang uncomfortable, you're just gonna have to deal with 20% less Lish.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about some Death Note.
The plot centers around Light Yagami, who discovers a notebook of death, or the Death Note, dropped into the world by the Shinigami known as Ryuk.
And why did he do this, you may ask? Because he was bored and he thought it would be fun to see humans wreaking havoc on each other.
As you do.
Yeah.
And I must say, he was not wrong. It was very entertaining to watch.
Very much so.
Yes.
So we have, of course, Light, who decides to start writing in the names of murderers and bad guys of all sorts, criminals, and start cleansing the world, and in doing so develops a major god complex.
Yeah.
It did not take long either for that to develop, but what's even more interesting than that, he apparently didn't play God in a nice, subtle way, because he eventually attracts the attention of the authorities, namely one of the chief investigators, like top in the freaking world, L. He goes by one initial, L. And he's the best. He's the best of the best. And there you go with that.
Yeah, so it then becomes a game of cat and mouse of who will discover the identity of each other first. Because if Light discovers L's true identity, his name and what he looks like, he can kill him, which is the limitation of the Death Note.
Yeah.
And if L discovers that Light is actually Kira, who is what they're calling the killer,
Codename.
the code name for the killer.
It's Japanese for killer, right?
It's derived from the English word for killer. I think they said in the manga.
Oh, okay. All right. They touched on it, but
they
it was
touched on
very
it briefly. Yeah. Just a quick little aside for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it becomes a very interesting game of cat and mouse, with each of them trying to outwit one another and prove that who they are or who they are not. And
of course trap the other one.
Trap the other one, of course. And try and cleanse the world, apparently.
Only one of them wants to cleanse the world.
Yes.
The other one just wants to trap what he believes to be the criminal of criminals. Sure, he's trying to kill criminals, but it becomes pretty obvious as the series progresses that Light's motives are not entirely altruistic.
No.
He's got a very, very warped sense of justice and of right and wrong. And you see that very early on in the manga. And it takes a little longer, I think, possibly with the anime, about a couple of episodes in you get to it. But with the manga, you definitely see him struggle at first, and then all of a sudden he just has a mental breakdown, basically. And you just see him go from this top of the class, like, ideal
overachiever, valedictorian type of fella.
Yeah.
And go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would say like he's a sociopath. Honestly.
Definitely,
yes.
he is.
There's so many. There was a few parts, and I don't want to really spoil, but there was a few parts where I felt like he was going to have more of an emotional reaction, and it was really just.
I'm very shocked.
An act. Yeah.
I was very shocked by some of the things he did.
Oh,
yeah.
immensely.
And at first, like when he's killing the criminals. Okay. Yeah.
You can kind of get behind him
a little bit. It's.
You can kind of.
It's not completely right, but I mean, you can understand it.
Oh, it's kind of like the Punisher.
Exactly.
In Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
I mean, he kills criminals all the time.
Exactly.
And he's an anti-hero.
So do most comic book heroes, actually.
Mm.
There's a lot of violence and death. It's just skimmed over. So
True. I mean, well, let's go with Superman. traditionally does not kill.
No.
Batman tries his best not to kill.
Yeah, he tries not to. In the comic, it's more so
Yeah.
than you see in some of the movies, I will admit.
Right.
But a lot of the characters superheroes do not kill.
Tangent.
Oh, that was a tangent, yes.
Oh yeah, why am I paying for it?
It was my tangent,
Yeah.
so...
Okay. Oh,
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. I brought up the Punisher to begin with.
No.
But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, you can kind of be like, okay, he's not exactly he's an anti-hero of sorts at first.
Yeah.
But then, at a certain point, which we're not going to give away too many spoilers, you're like,
You realize he's a villain.
he really is. And that is something you don't see too often. You don't see a story told from the villain's point of view too often.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I can only think of maybe a handful where you have the protagonist being the villain. Quote unquote, the true villain is
Right.
actually the protagonist. I can count Clockwork Orange, both the movie and the book,
Yeah.
because he is not a
Right.
good person at all.
Right, but I mean, we do have some examples of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, let's talk more about Light's descent into the dark.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry for the pun.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
But,
seriously, it's evident, even in episode 1, that Light craves this power and he's going to use it how he sees fit.
Mhm.
He's not even thinking so much in terms of right and wrong. Even in episode 1, he's like, I'm going to be the god of the new world. Like, it did not take long at all for him to decide that this notebook
Mhm.
gives him all the authority he could ever need,
Yeah.
want, hope for.
That may be the first episode, but it's implied that this has been going on for a couple of weeks or maybe even a month or so.
Yeah.
So,
It didn't
I mean,
take long, though.
power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say.
Yes.
So, well, that ties into, as I said, he's a very complex character, and you don't want to root for him.
Yeah.
You really don't. But at the same time, you want to see how he's going to get out of this,
Yeah.
which is what makes him a compelling character.
I don't root for him.
Mhm.
Yes, I am curious about how he's going to get out of it, if he's going to get out of it, but truthfully, I hate to say it, you guys have already heard enough about it from behind the scenes, but the thing that makes him great is L. It's his antagonist that actually makes him great, because he would probably just get bored if he was just writing names and looking at the TV for criminals. He would eventually get bored and he would probably break his own code in different ways. But L, by trying to catch him, gives him something to do.
It gave him purpose.
Right.
It gave him purpose, but more so it forced him to up his game.
Very true, because he already did have purpose. He had a higher goal and
It's-
everything.
He was going head to head with the best detective in the world at that point.
It was kind of the Joker-Batman dynamic. It's
very
the,
much
the
so.
messed up thing is Joker loves Batman.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think that L and Light loved each other too.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because there's one scene, yes, I am going into spoilers. Maybe he doesn't want to go there, but I do.
Time
So,
out. Spoilers!
spoiler.
Last warning, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, don't turn away. You're going to want to hear this. So, anyway, I am certain that L and Light loved each other very much. At first, they may have started out as strictly rivals, as strictly trying to entrap the other one up the other one, but it didn't last long that way, because L comes right out and says, I know you're Kira and I'm L. Knowing that is going to fuck with Light. So, like, first of all, yes, so much yes. But then there's one scene in particular, much later on, just about the time we're seeing a very major change in characters, in plot points, that L is washing Light's feet. And at first, you know, I watched this, I wondered, do they have, like, a thing for each other? Because, like, there was some tension there. Maybe I was hoping some tension, I don't know, but...
Certainly fan
Then-
fiction fuel.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way that they look at each other and just kind of take care of each other for a minute, it's almost like they know that neither one can live while the other survives. Yes, I'm quoting Harry Potter. But seriously, they know that neither one can truly be harmonious while the other one is wreaking havoc. But they also know that they don't really want to be without each other, even if they're feeling like their time together is coming to a close. And I genuinely think that they knew their time together was coming to a close.
Definitely.
Elle actually confessed, Light, you're probably my first and only friend, so I'm really gonna be sad when I find out that you're Kira.
Yeah.
Not if you're Kira.
Right.
I'm gonna be sad when I find out that you are in fact Kira.
Right.
When I can prove it.
Yeah.
And then, later on, after things change, Light can't stop comparing these other people to Elle. So, if this isn't a spoiler for you, then you kind of, after a certain turn of events, you may also be feeling that immense sense of loss. And I'm sure that it was designed that way, that the plot points were written out in that way, so that way you would actually sympathize more with Light, in a sense, because he's trying to replace things that are now gone. And so even you can't really attach yourself to the new situation as much anymore, because he himself is just still constantly comparing with what I'm going to affectionately call the old flame.
Fair enough. But in that regards, there is another character who likes to consider herself Light's true flame.
Yes.
Yes.
And Misa is very controversial.
Very much so.
Because Teddy's going to tell you all about how he feels about Misa.
Don't like her.
And tell us why.
Oh, all right. No, I never liked as a non-anime guy. Watching some of these, I've noticed some tropes.
Sure.
And I've never been a fan of the "not this me senpai" trope, and that's totally Misa. It always bothered me because it's like she has like zero self-respect. And I find that annoying. It's just like, I will do anything for you. It's just kind of like, you barely know the guy. It's just kind of, he's like, he doesn't care that you're there. And it's just like, what are you doing, girlfriend? Come on.
I agree very much to a certain point, and you know why I would agree with it for pretty much everything that you just said. But also, I can't help but feel a really, really just strong sense of sympathy for her. Because, keep in mind, it's been established that she lost her parents. They were murdered.
Yeah.
And Kira brought her parents to justice. Brought her parents' killers to justice. He did what the frickin' police could not do. So she feels straight up indebted to him. She's like, you brought me peace of mind. You brought me justice, which is something that people in the authorities claim that they can do, but they can't.
Right.
She has devoted herself to him in part because of that. In part after that, she probably thinks he's cute. She just wants to be loved.
Yeah.
I agree with you. She doesn't have as much self-respect as she could have. She is so devoted. She is so willing to, like, help him with anything he needs, be there for him, like, comply with any request he has, or demand. He doesn't ask for anything.
He does not.
And, I mean, on top of that, not that it's important, but she's really cute. Like, instead of her being, like, the one hated on for, like, putting up with this, yes, okay, girl, get yourself some help. Go be free. Go be happy for once in your life. But I'm more mad at Light for treating her like that.
Well, I'm upset with him. Well, I'm upset with him for a few reasons.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because I'm upset that he's him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, the other thing was, what bothered me, and loved the show. It was really well written. I do love that the psychological
Thriller, cat and mouse.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's
Love
like
it.
Tom and Jerry
Mhm.
with death.
Yeah, pretty much.
And not as funny, but
Well, it has its moments. I mean,
it does.
Honestly, I think Death Note was funnier, but anyway,
Oh,
go
no.
ahead. Go ahead. We'll
Mhm.
talk more.
Fair enough. I felt like she was too convenient. That bothered me a little bit. I mean, like, she did add to the story, but it was
Mhm.
just kind of like, it was fun seeing how Light kind of figured out his way out of
Mhm.
jams.
Mhm.
But then, like, she came along, and it's just like, well, you know, it
Mm.
was...
May I interject really
Of
quick
course.
based off that? I know a lot of people dislike Misa, but as you said, I can't help but feel some sympathy for her. I really do, because she did have some traumatic events and stuff, and she does add something to the story. It's not so much the convenience, it's the fact that she screws up. She's overly trying to be helpful, and in doing so, puts Light in these predicaments that he has to get out of almost, and he can still use her to some degree. Now, at the same time, she openly admits that she knows she's being used, and she
Yeah.
wants to be used. That's what she describes it as. She
Yeah.
in one point she even says that you could kill me if it would help you, and that is a level of obsession. Not so much obsession, but of devotion,
Yes.
like godlike, because that's what he feeds off of that to some
Well,
degree.
no,
No, I
he's-
agree with
Definitely.
you. She's as much an antagonist as she is a sidekick.
Mhm.
You're right. It is actually quite
Yeah,
compelling.
no, he's not just a sociopath, he's a narcissist.
Yeah. Well, I think
Like-
most sociopaths are. Isn't that an requirement?
Kind
to
of.
be-
I mean, like, no, narcissists.
They are
it's-
different. They
yeah.
are
There's
different.
different degrees of it.
There,
Yeah.
you can have.
They
you
have
can be,
overlapping symptoms.
They do. There's
Lack of
There
empathy.
is narcissism with sociopathic tendencies.
Okay.
There's,
Lack of empathy is a common symptom for
Exactly.
both things, so it's easy to confuse the
Yeah.
two.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying with Misa. So she does all these things that can be seen as really irritating and dumb at times. But just like how a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day, she does occasionally do things right. Her way of figuring out who Light was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
She had all these little plans here and there that helped her out quite a bit. And she also helped figure out who a certain character was later in the series.
Yeah.
So she is competent to a degree.
She is actually very smart. The thing that makes her, quote unquote, stupid in a lot of people's eyes is just that she is blindly, or perhaps as you mentioned, not so blindly, devoted to a complete and utter shithead.
Pretty much.
But can we talk about how her milkshake brings all the Shinigamis to the yard?
Oh, yes.
Not just one, but 2 Shinigamis
Mm-hmm.
were prepared to and did actually lose their lives to sustain her because they loved her. Maybe Light didn't love her, but apparently a lot of gods of death did.
I wanted to bring up that god of death, Rem. She is the only female Shinigami we ever meet, to the best of my knowledge. I know there's like one-shot story which involves another female god of death, but I've never read that one.
Oh.
I don't think I've read that
At
either,
least-
so
at least
that's all
I don't
new
know
to
if it
me.
was brought over. I'm
I
not
mean-
100% sure.
We're not sure if she. I mean, because they didn't really express gender.
Manga, she actually explicitly states, I'm a female.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. Never mind.
And there is a musical version of this,
I must see it.
and she has a song about Misa after Misa decides to give up her memories. So that is very interesting. But another thing I want to talk about is how Misa kept cutting her life in half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, to service Light.
To serve Light, she kept cutting her life in half with the Shinigami Eyes,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
a big plot point.
In case those of you who have not seen the show are wondering what Shinigami Eyes are,
Mhm.
and you've somehow escaped the live-action movie, Shinigami Eyes are basically where you make a deal with the god of death, and you can have their eyes, which means that you can see everyone's true name and expiration date above their head.
Yeah. It's like
So-
Betty Davis eyes, but with death.
Pretty much.
You're paying for that one, but that was a good one.
I don't think he should have to pay for that one, actually. It wasn't a tangent, it was just an excellent joke.
All right.
Alright.
Down, Tangent Jar.
I
Down!
saved you.
All right, thank you.
Notice me, senpai! But But despite all this drama and cat and mouse and thriller that we're talking about, and as Teddy never fails to point out, death. There were many wonderful, lighthearted moments in this. One that kind of stuck out for me when Misa is talking about, I can't live in a world without light, and then Elle's like, yes, that would be very dark. The wordplay is amazing. One that we all loved. Can we show a clip of that, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself for the most epic moment of potato chip eating in recorded history.
Just watch me, Elle. I'll solve equations with my right hand and write names with my left. I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
It was glorious! That right there deserves an award unto itself.
It really
It
does.
Do you think those were light potato chips?
Oh, God. You are paying for that one.
Yeah.
That one wasn't
Yeah.
cute.
You pushed your luck there, folks.
I
You
know.
pushed his luck.
Right. There's also this one scene that's really awesome. It's where Light and Elle are handcuffed to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So that way Elle can maintain constant supervision
Vision.
over Light.
Constant.
And they decide to get up in each other's faces. And can we show a clip of that, please?
An eye for an eye, my friend.
Something about it is so funny. And then afterward, they just make up.
Oh, yeah.
They just make up.
Right.
They hug it out, you know.
You know that led to some interesting fan fiction
Oh,
right there,
yeah.
folks.
Some of it I didn't even create.
Yeah. I just
Yeah, we'll
imagine
go with that.
Misa in the corner with the camera.
Yeah.
There's already cameras all around. All she has to do is hit
Yeah,
rewind
there
a
we
few
go.
times. So,
I will say this though, for as much as I absolutely adored the character Elle, he was not perfect. The one thing that really bothered me about him was how he treated Misa Misa. Specifically when he takes her in for questioning. Light goes in for questioning, when Misa goes in for questioning, when Light's dad, who's a very essential character, who we've largely glossed over until now,
Yeah.
very sorry. They get happy little rooms with happy little beds and just bars on their windows. What does Misa Misa get? The BDSM fucking strap up. And she's
Yeah.
forced to stand and sit like that for days. That's really fucked up. That aside, I loved Elle. That one thing, dude, you kind of a not so low level creeper, I'm just saying.
Oh, she even calls him out on that.
Well, the thing where she felt like she was grabbed, he wasn't actually trying to grab her. He was like distracting her so he could get her phone.
No, later on as well.
Oh.
There's a few other ones when they're in the skyscraper together. He makes a few comments and stuff, and she says stuff about it.
Oh.
Yeah, they were just sprinkled in here and there. There was one other thing I just remembered I wanted to bring up about Light and Misa's relationship. I am very much reminded of the relationship between Harley Quinn and the Joker from Batman the Animated Series. You can definitely see that they are both extremely unhealthy relationships, which some people in the fan base glorify to an unhealthy degree, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
It is a very interesting dynamic because, as I said, you have the Joker and Harley Quinn, where their relationship is not only just mentally abusive, but also straight up physically abusive, where he attempts to kill her on several occasions.
Yeah. Because he's bored.
Pretty much, and he thinks she gets in his way. Light
thinks the same thing.
same exact thing, but he won't kill her because she's still useful. He can still use her. It's interesting to see that in two different mediums, how that relationship is played out. Even towards the end of the series, no matter what happens, she's still there for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting character dynamic between the two of them. I think it actually led to some very interesting, intense moments. As we brought up Rem earlier, how she feels about Misa. So, with Ryuk, he's technically neutral.
Yeah.
He is an enabler to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
Rem I found extremely interesting, as I said, because she is willing to interfere with the human world more so than Ryuk.
Yeah.
She is, by far, I guess, one of the most, to put it in air quotes, human characters in the series. I just thought that was fascinating to watch that part of the relationship as well. The interrelationships between the characters are fascinating to watch, especially when you're trying to figure out, like, which one is actually being genuine and which one is not. And I think that's the biggest draw. As you said, there weren't too many anime cliches with the big hair and the power levels and all that. The worst ending one would have to be Misa's character, as you said, because of the Notice Me Senpai aspect.
And the really high-pitched voice!
Oh.
Which I will admit, she acts like this intentionally to draw a certain crowd.
Honestly, it makes sense, because especially if you look at traditional Japanese culture, the more cutesy you are, essentially the more highly valued you are.
Which also, I think, in some ways, you could see Death Note as something of a critique on Japanese culture in terms of the pressure put on young people. Take a look at it. I mean, we have this kid who is an overachieving, everyone's got all this pressure on him to constantly do good. It has gotten to the point where his idea of what is good has become so warped that he does this.
I like the psychology behind everything. Like, he comes from, like, a pretty stable family,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
Happy
but I
home.
think he suffered a bit of accidental abuse from the parents, because they seemed to only pay attention to him when he was achieving.
Neglect, more so than abuse.
And so that's why I call it, like, accidental, you know, because neglect is, to a degree, a form of abuse. He had good parents. They were decent people from as much as we got to know about them.
Right.
But I think because of their environment, they had their own thing going on, and Light only got attention because he was smart. So that's kind of what led to him being the way he is.
In some part, but for him to develop the God complex, I think he developed a superiority complex well before he had the notebook, because something inside of him had to make him think he was the right man for this job, and that it was his call.
That was his narcissism.
But when you're told that you're, you know, the shit often enough, you're going to
You-
believe that maybe a little too hard sometimes.
Little too much.
Yeah.
Well, in that regard, I do want to go back to basically the first manga. In the first couple chapters of it, he actually does not sleep, he does not eat, he's questioning himself whether or not he can do this, or if he even has the right to.
In the very beginning.
In the very beginning.
It's not like he has an attack of conscience later on.
Oh, no.
No.
But truthfully, I think he already kind of decided it's almost like false modesty for his own sake.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I know that kind of goes against everything you're saying. I'm not saying that he couldn't have had a real attack of conscience, but the fact that he got over it so quickly.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt guilty about not feeling guilty? I think that's basically what was going on with him.
Yeah.
I think he was like, oh, who am I to do this? Who am I? Well, I'm me.
But
You know?
in that regard, what about when... We're going to do another little spoiler right here, so pardon me for this.
Spoiler! I'm sorry.
Indeed.
He like.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that
it's
earlier.
okay.
Put it on the back of your car.
Yes. And some tricked out
for it.
rims, yo. I'm paying
Pay
for that
for
one.
it. That one was good, but dude, he's trying to make a point here.
Okay, so, at one point, Light loses his memories of being Kira.
Yeah,
And in the time he's doing that, he actually is,
a decent person.
he is a decent person. And he starts to question it because he's like, I understand where he's coming from, but I couldn't even do this, could I? I'm not saying it justifies it at all. No, I'm just saying I think it's interesting to see how much of a mental breakdown he had after killing two people.
Yeah.
And I think, in a way, he snapped. As you said, he had neglect, maybe.
Yeah.
I think, to some degree, he was on the edge from all the pressure he is under and everything, and this rigid idea he has of good and bad caused him to snap. A psychotic break of
It's
sorts.
possible.
To a degree. I mean,
that would be probably what you're talking about.
I think part of it is that much power is addicting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how because I think when an addict will find some way to justify their habit, you know,
I know.
to a degree. So I think that was part of, like, I think that's part of what hurt his morality to a degree. You know, and
It
plus,
could be that it was addicting, but then again, there are other people who have been in possession of power that
Mm-hmm.
don't go around killing their citizens or don't go around, there are people in power who have done a good
Well,
job
that's-
with that power. It
that's the thing,
unfortunately
it's-
comes down to not excusing his behavior
I'm not
simply because he had power,
I wasn't.
but because he, he's that kind of character that
Yeah,
would act
I
on
was
that.
just explaining like where he would kind of like start justifying
Mm-hmm.
the killing. You know,
Right.
it's so many
Remember,
levels. It's,
he was willing to kill who he thought was L
yeah,
just because he didn't want to be caught and didn't
right.
want to be
Exactly.
challenged.
He was
He
very
didn't want to
self-serving.
be insulted.
No.
Just-
Insulted,
yeah.
challenged.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
even an insult, really. He was simply being challenged.
Yeah. It was and he saw it as an insult, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You're challenging me?
Yeah.
I'm the god of this new world,
Right.
basically.
Exactly.
So yeah,
But the fact that he literally planned everything out at a
Mhm.
certain point, I'm trying so hard not to give much away, but
Mhm.
he planned everything out
mm-hmm.
before he lost his memory.
True.
So
Yeah.
he knew that he would go back to, I'm sorry guys, I know you disagree with me on this, but pretending to be a nice guy. The reason why he comes across
Mhm.
as being genuinely nice is because at that point he doesn't have the power to be anything else. And that's how you know when you truly do have a nice person. Do they have the power to be bad and choose not to be? If the answer is yes, then they are truly good. But if they don't have the power to be anything but good, then they're only acting based on fear, based on rules, based on
Mhm.
the constraints that they either feel are forced on them or that they have forced on themselves. Because once he had the power, he went right back to who he was.
Well, literally, he became the person he was again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Well, that does kind of go along with addiction. Like, there's people who can have a beer, alcoholic
Mhm.
beverages, and be fine. And then there's people who need it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, so everyone's different with how they handle their habit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was more my point, because
Oh, I
Light,
know,
Mhm.
I
Light's
know.
trigger was power,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he let it go to his head, which
Right.
unfortunately many people do.
Yeah.
Not everybody, of
I
course.
I
mean,
like your analysis of thinking of it as substance abuse and addiction and whatnot.
and again,
But I
it's-
don't. I personally, although I see your point,
Yeah.
I don't think that was his true motivation.
No,
I
no.
don't think that the power became an addiction. I think the power gave him the freedom to be who he truly was. I think it peeled back the layers and really brought out his essence.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it's a facet, you know.
Mm.
It's
Right.
just something that just adds to.
No, I
The
love that you have a
situation.
different
Mhm.
theory.
Yeah,
I love that you have
it's
a different
just
theory.
you know, it's like I said, there's the narcissism,
Mhm.
the
Uh-huh.
sociopathic tendencies.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on
and,
those.
And then and then just the addiction to power.
Looking for things to prove himself, by the way,
Exactly.
because it
Mhm.
wasn't just simply loving himself a little too much.
Right.
He was like constantly trying
Well,
to.
you know, narcissism.
We never heard about any of that on camera, so
Right,
yeah,
but you know, well,
Sorry.
with narcissism,
I'll pay for that one.
yeah, you
You
were
for the best.
you've joined the cult of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everyone needs to join this cult. So
Right.
that's how it tends to work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it was very fascinating. As a not anime guy,
Mhm.
I really like this.
Good.
So,
Good.
Well then, I think it's time that we address the audience itself. What do you guys think of Light? What is it? Do you think that? What do you guys think? Was he always potentially evil?
Or was he just caught up on addiction?
Yeah.
yeah. Or was there several facets that kind of led him to where he went?
You know what? Even more than that, guys, we definitely want to know your thoughts on
Mhm.
what you think about Light.
Mhm.
But what do you think about, the whole Joker Harley Quinn dynamic? What do you
Definitely.
think about Misa Misa? Is she somebody you're sympathetic to, or is she somebody that just annoys the piss out of you?
Would you throw her off a train?
what did you think of Elle?
Yes.
What were your favorite parts from the series if you've seen it? And if you haven't seen it, is it something you'd like to check out now? Please, just talk to us. Make like Billy Joel and tell us about it.
Down there
Tell her
in
about
the
it.
comments.
Tell
Post,
her about it.
share this video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please
Thank you.
like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are active on all of those platforms, so you can get more of the glorious three that is us.
Oh yes.
So I think with that, I think we've touched on some really good stuff here.
I think we have. Do you want to plug the next thing?
Of course, I'll be happy to plug the next thing. You see, folks,
Oh.
we are ending our spectacular month of Halloween with this buffet of just joy and death. That was Death Note. We enjoyed it immensely. We hope you have. And for the month of November, we have a treat for you.
Not a trick or treat.
Not a trick or treat, no, but a treat. Maybe not for you, but for us definitely, because it is reviewer's choice. That's right. We get to pick whatever. There's no theme. Just pick whatever you want to review, and you get to review it. That's right. We're having some fun with it, folks.
We are, so expect the unexpected.
Darn tootin'. So, as usual, I am Stu,
I'm Lish.
Teddy D.
and we are Animation Triad.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
I already did my, it would just,
Yeah,
it's
it'd be
awkward.
redundant.
It's
Yeah.
awkward.
It's always awkward.
That's the point.
I know.
Awkward. Finger guns.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you I'm insane, but I got a blank space, baby. And I'll write your name.